Perfect. And everybody might have to hit continue for that to work. All right. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to first ever for me anyway, a pop-up to demonstrate something that I've learned. And as all Christian activities, we should start with prayer. And I'm not sure if your parish has shared Bishop Sandra's Trinity Sunday homily, but within it, she shared the richness of the Celtic tradition and that there were prayers for everything that they did. And so I couldn't find one for making soap, but I found one that was close and I adapted it. So let us pray together. I rise today through the mighty strength of God the Creator, with God's Son to guide me and God's mighty Spirit to uphold me. May God's eyes to watch over me today as I endeavor to care for the earth, as I care for my family. God bless today's work of making soap. May it clean our exteriors as you, O God, have cleansed our interiors. Great Spirit, continue to guide and inspire us as we learn to implement the wisdom of our grandparents, that in caring for the earth, we too will be cared for. That is, to waste not, will want not, and that there is enough for all if only we trust enough to share what we have. Amen. So I really am sharing a gift from my grandparents. I was really quite blessed. I had my maternal great-grandparents on my grandmother's side, so maternal great-grandparents lived well into their 90s, and I got to know them quite well. And my great-grandmother made her own soap. I'm not using her recipe because that has long been lost. But I am using her wisdom. She, as most people in her time, lived on a micro farm and they used everything. So soap is essentially a mixture of lye, water, and a fat. For her, they would have used rendered suet from the cattle that they would have butchered each fall, or from the hog. But I do not have a farm and I do not have a hog to render any fat down from. So I'm going to be using a vegetable oil base for my soap. So I think people generally might be a little intimidated by making soap because of one step, and that is working with lye. So I'll show you. Oops, I think I've got it. All right. So I'll see if I can get my. This is lye crystals, and I've looked around in a bunch of places, and I've just generally found that it's easier to find things for making sort of traditional stuff at Home Hardware. So Home Hardware is where I purchased these. I got a huge jug. It's probably enough to make basically a lifetime's worth of soap. It's 3 kilograms, and today we're only going to be using 4.1 ounces of the lye crystals. And this is the piece that you have to be careful with. Lye is a very strong base, so it is corrosive, just like an acid is corrosive. A strong base is corrosive as well. So I'm just going to move this out of the way. That's the soap I made last night, but I'll show you a little bit later. So we are going to start by donning gloves, and I've got a recycled pair, and I seem to have got two right hands, so they're a little bit wobbly, but that's all right. So there's two things that you're going to absolutely need to make this easy, and that is a digital scale, and you're going to also need a stick blender or an immersion blender. as they're called. This one I got at what was it? The Atlantic Superstore, and I think it cost between $20 and $30, so it wasn't outrageous, and I've been able to use it for lots of different projects. This one's nice because it actually the blade detaches, so I can just take that off and run it through the dishwasher, so I don't have to worry about any soap residue passing along to maybe the soup that I'm gonna blend next. All right. So I'm going to show you how to make lye, your lye mixture, but we're going to use one that I used last night, or made last night, but I'll show you why. So with the lye mixture, I'm going to just start by measuring out my water, and I need 9.7 ounces of water. So I just put my jar on the scale and zero it out, and then I'll add my 9 ounces, 9.7. So it's really, really important that you use distilled water. Lye will react potentially with minerals in your water, especially if you're on a town water system where you may have some chlorine in your water. You don't want that. So just make sure you do start with distilled water. You can distill your own on the stove, or you can buy jugs of it at most grocery stores. So that is my 9.7 ounces of water. So I'm going to set that aside. And I have another little container here. I'm going to zero out my scale again. And I'm going to just pour these lye crystals. And I'll just show you a few on my gloves. They're like, here we go. I'm not sure how well, oops, you'll see them, but they're like little balls. You can get lye in flakes or these little crystal balls, and it doesn't matter which version you get. So we just need to weigh out 4.1 ounces. I'm getting close. There we go. So this is the only dangerous thing about making soap, and that is working with your lye. Thing to note is that lye is a strong base, so if it gets on your skin, it will start to burn. So you always want to keep a jug of vinegar around, because vinegar is a strong acid. So if you were to get some on your skin, you could just pour the vinegar on it and it would neutralize it, so you wouldn't get any burns. So that's just a safety trick. The other thing is you could put it under your range hood because there will be some fumes that come off. But the most important thing is simply always add your lye to your water and not your water to your lye, because I've never seen it, but I am told that you can get an explosion. So I just have a wooden stick that I'm going to use to stir, and I'm going to pour my lye into my water. And again, just because it is a strong corrosive material, just don't put your face close to it. You'll see perhaps that, let's see if I can get you to see it. It sort of clumps down at the bottom. And so you just stir it around until it gets dissolved in your water and becomes dissolved in solution. So it just takes a couple minutes to get it stirred because it likes to stick to the bottom of your container. And what you will notice after a minute is that you may have some, sorry, a mosquito in here. You may have some vapors rising. So just make sure that you keep it away from your face, because you may have some coming up in a vapored. I'm gonna stop and kill this mosquito. So you just might want to stir it for a couple of minutes, but what you will find is if you feel the outside of your bottle, it's getting quite hot. You're having a chemical reaction. There we go. So once you've got it all dissolved in your solution, really all you have to do is wait for it to cool down. And as it cools, it'll go from being this cloudy solution to being clear. The easiest way to do it is if you want to make soap on a particular day, make your lye solution the day before. Once it's cooled down, you can put your cover on your mason jar, just clearly label it that it's your lye solution, and then you can use it anytime. This will last for a really long time, but it will take an hour or two to cool down. And so if you use it right away, your soap might not set up properly. So we aren't going to use this particular lye solution today. I'm going to set it aside and we'll use the one that I made up last night. So I'm just going to put this under the range hood. So there, perfect. All right, so this is the lye solution that I made yesterday, and you can see that all the cloudiness has gone out of it, and it really essentially looks like a bottle full of water, but it is our lye solution. Okay, so we have our lye and water, and I keep gonna, I've got a pesky mosquito here. Now we're just gonna measure out our fat. The first time I made soap was actually as Daniel and my wedding favors, and we bought this cool pear-shaped mold, and I made it with olive oil. So it was an olive oil based soap, and it turned out really well. And I thought, well, why am I not making my own hand soaps? We wanted to have wedding favors that weren't going to be an impact on the environment. So this was perfect. And we packed them in paper bags so that everything was fully recyclable. So the next step, you need a large container. I'm going to use a glass jar today. I have a nice big pickle jar so that you can see what's happening inside the jar as we mix. So you just need to put that on your scale and zero it out again. And today I'm using corn oil, and I have used, what's it called? A canola. And I've also used olive oil with the same recipe. If you go online, if you're really interested in doing more of this, you'll see there's lots of other options with coconut fats and different levels of different types of fat to give you a certain kind of soap. But these ones have worked just fine for us, and the oils are very economical. So this is corn oil, and I'm going to measure out 32 ounces. Getting close. You do want to try and be quite precise with your measurements. There. So I got a tiny bit too much, so I'm going to get a spoon. And I'm going to remove a little bit of that. Let's see if a spoonful is enough. It's more than enough, so almost. There we go. All right. So we have 32 ounces of oil, and we have our water and lye solution, and we're just going to carefully pour that lye solution into our oil. And here we go again. Just keep your face back from the jar so that if you were to have a splash, the lye isn't going to get on you. So just pour those together like so. So I would recommend, I usually put a piece of parchment paper down just so that any spills don't react with your countertop finish. I know it sounds super scary, but essentially what will happen is the lye will be fully incorporated into the oil. And as your soap sets, all that chemical harshness will leave your product, and it'll allow you to have that soapy lather that you want to have with your soap. So now we're going to use the stick blender, and I'm sorry this is going to be a bit loud, but we just start blending it, and it'll go a nice, see how it's gone quite cloudy and white, and it'll go that way throughout. Okay, so it usually takes a couple of minutes of mixing, but what you want to be watching for is something that they call trace. So what you do is you pull your mixer out and you let it drip onto the surface of the soap. And if your drips actually leave an indent that stays, it means that it's thickened up enough that you can add anything else that you want to add to your soap. We are not quite there, but we're very close. So I'm just going to do that a little bit more. Okay. So it's pretty hard to see, but I am getting little indents in the top of the soap that are starting to leave a mark. There we go. So I've got it leaving some nice clear markings. I'm going to see if you can see any of them. I'm not sure you can, but you can see that the surface is not perfectly smooth. It's left some indents. So that means it's starting to set up a little bit. Now, if you want to make scent-free soap, then essentially you're finished. And you just pour it into your molds now and be done. I've found that I generally use unscented products at home, but I found I don't super love there's just not a perfectly nice scent that goes along with it. So I have become accustomed to adding a scent. Last night I made a clove soap because I was making a hand soap. So I'll just show you the block of clove soap. I'm not sure if you can see, but it has like little dots of cloves. So all I did is I ground up some whole cloves, about a tablespoon and a half, and I just mixed it right in at this point and then poured it into my containers. When I was making my wedding soap, we wanted our pears to be pear colored. So we added some light green food coloring at this point, and we added some essential oils of lemongrass. So it has a nice lemongrass scent. Today is actually kind of a bit of a joke. My husband had an old girlfriend who said he smelled like sandalwood. So I bought a container of sandalwood extract. So I'm going to add that. It comes out just at a drip at a time. So I'm going to remove this little cap and add a full 2 teaspoons, and that's what this bottle holds. So if you're going to use an oil, an essential oil, scent. It's usually about 2 teaspoons for this particular variety. I'm not going to add any food coloring, but this is when you would add it if you're going to add it. So I'm just going to mix in my scent with my stick blender again. There, my soap is done. So I'm just going to put my stick blender over in the sink. And there's just really one more step, and that is to pour it into whatever mold you'd like to use. So I've tried a bunch of different things. You really do need a silicone mold. I tried to do it in a loaf pan lined with parchment paper, and that could work, but you'd have to make sure that your loaf pan is glass, because when I did it in the metal loaf pan, even though it was lined with parchment, the lye reacted through the parchment, and it degraded the metal in my pan. So I don't recommend metal. But I have these great muffin molds. They're silicone muffin molds. So I'm going to make round soaps today. Another thing that we had were these silicone giant ice cube kind of trays. And that's what I made my clove soap in yesterday. So once you put them in the mold, I'll do that next, but you should leave them in the mold for about 24 hours. That'll allow the soap to set up enough that you can pop it out. I didn't make my soap until last evening, so I only popped one cube of soap out to show you, because it's set on the outside. You can see it's sort of a light color, but on the inside where it was next to the other, it's still really quite soft. In fact, your soap will stay soft when you first take it out of the mold, until you let it sit for 2 to 3 weeks. And then the longer you leave it, the harder your soap will get, and it'll last for a good long time. But one of the reasons you want to pop it out of your mold after, you could wait 48 hours, but if you're making your soap in something like a loaf pan, you're going to want to pop it out and then slice it. So 24 hours lets it set enough that it's hard enough to get out of your mold, but it's not so hard that it's difficult to slice your soap into the size of bars that you want. But we're going to put ours in our muffin tray here. So we're just going to pour it in, and it's like a nice thick pudding kind of consistency, flowing pudding. Here we go. And I'm just going to pull my mold back a little bit so it's not on my butcher block, because I don't want to hurt that. There we go. So you can see it's going to make quite a bit of soap. It's a great gift at Christmas time, especially if you want to use some of the natural herbs. I'm growing lavender in the backyard, so I'm hoping to make some lavender soap for Christmas gifts this year. You can put anything in it, juniper berries, ground up, lots of things in nature that you can incorporate in here. One other thing you might want to try is impregnating your oil with a scent. So something like spruce tips, you could take and measure out your oil and just put spruce tips in it and leave it for a week or so, and then remove the spruce tips when you start to make your soap, and you'll get a nice sort of piney kind of smell from that. So we're essentially done. You just leave it sit in your molds, like I said, for about 24 hours. And you'll get a sense, like the ones that I made last evening, when I push on them, I can feel it moving a little bit. It's still quite soft, but by this evening, it should be set up enough that if you push on it hard, you'll still feel it compact a bit, but it'll be hard enough to get out of the molds. As far as storing your soap as it's curing, it prefers to be in a dry place that's a little bit cool. So my favorite spot is to stick mine in a fish box in the garage. So I just I leave it uncovered with like a cloth over it. But if it's a really moist place, you might want to find a different spot for it. The amount of moisture and the amount of heat in the air is going to just change how long it takes to set. So like I said, 2 or 3 weeks, it's ready to start using. And but longer just means it's going to get harder, and that's just fine. We've made enough soap here that we'll keep going until well into the fall, I'm sure. Some people like to use something like ground coffee, you know, the leftover grounds from your filter. People will put that in their soap to create like an exfoliant. I tend to like to have like a clear soap with just a gentle scent for body soap, but my clove soap, which does have little bits and chunks, I'll use that as a hand soap at the kitchen sink. So just before we finish, I think I will show you a piece of soap that I have here that I don't know how well you'll see here. I'll maybe turn this light on. No, it makes it worse. Just a second. I'll go this way. See if that makes it better. So this is a bar of soap that I've been using in my kitchen, so it's a little bit wet right now. But I just want to show you that just like a purchased soap, you get it wet and it lathers right up. So you get a nice soapy lather from your homemade soap, and I think you'll find it's just as effective as any store-bought soap, and introduces a lot less plastics into the world. The other benefit of making this particular soap is one thing that I really wanted to make was laundry detergent. And all the videos I've been watching on YouTube use two different kinds of soap. And the one that's sticking in my head right now is called Zote, Z-O-T-E, and that's used as sort of the base soap for your laundry detergent. And it's not easy to get in Canada. Sort of our equivalent is those bars of Sunlight soap that look like a bar of soap. But when I've looked into those, they've got a lot of extra chemicals in them. And really what you need is a lye-based soap. So anything that you make, like the demonstration I made this morning, you could use as your base soap for making your laundry detergent. So I hope that if people are interested, our next video would be how to take some of this and make it into some laundry soap. And when I make my laundry soap, I make a 5-gallon bucket full, and it's really quite concentrated. I'm still perfecting it, but I'm really quite happy with the product that I've started to make now. And I'll show you that next time. But I have to say, I've got a load of clothes on the clothesline, and it's really exciting to know that I made the soap, and I've made our family's laundry clean with as little environmental impact as I can have. So thanks for coming. I will give Marion hi Betty. I will give her the recipe and sort of the hints that I've learned along the way. And please experiment. Like I said, people are a little bit intimidated by the lye, but you know, it's the same product that my great grandmother would have used with her suet to make the hand soap that she made for generations of my family. So yeah, I hope you give it a try. Try different scents, different colors. You will find that the lye will react with some colors. So you might want it to be pink, but it might be brown, or you might want it to be green and it's a different color. But I did find that when you let your lye fully cool, like I did by making it the night before, you get less reaction and your colors stay true. So it's an effort to be experimented with, and I hope you have fun making soap. Are there any questions?
No, thank you very much. That's interesting.
That's
My
fabulous.
parents, my mom, there was a lady that used to make soap for my mom years and years ago.
Yeah. And I remember my great grandmother's soap, and I can just see it vividly in my imagination. And I remember it was like, it didn't smell like any soap I had ever smelled before. And it was just like really cool. I remember feeling like, this is so cool. Grammy made this. And she did. I mean, that generation, they didn't waste anything.
Yeah.
And they made most everything themselves. And I still have memories of my grandparents and my great grandparents saying, you know, years ago, we would go to town maybe once or twice a year to get sugar and you know, just a few things like baking powder. Everything else they essentially grew or raised on the farm or produced themselves. And I think they had a lot to teach us.
Tammy, this is fabulous. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll get the recording, and I'll get the information to you, Marion, so you can post the recipe with it.
Okay.
And,
I'm going to thank you and cut the recording. Okay, and look forward to the next one.